Hi, I'm Adam Drake from Losi, and I'm going to show you the way that I rebuild and refill my differentials on my 8-scale vehicles. Pretty much all the stuff that you'll need is I'm doing a rear diff here, so I'm going to use Losi's 2000 weight diff fluid, Losi's high pressure black grease, and then what I have here laid out is the complete differential. I'll show you how I build it. Now the first thing you want to do is make sure all your parts are clean. I use Losi Nitrotech Cleaner just to make sure that there's no oil, grease, or any debris from just parts breaking in and things like that. Now what I'll do is I'll take the Losi high pressure black grease and apply a thin bead of this grease into the grease groove on the outdrive. You'll do that with both outdrives. And then I also apply a small amount of the black grease to the ring gear. Just kind of work that around a little bit. And then also to the diff housing. You'll place your bearings onto the ring gear and the diff housing. And put the outdrive onto the ring gear. Work it around just to work the grease around. And you'll have some excess black grease here, and that's actually good because as you push the O-ring on, it'll kind of push that grease down there so that you have a good seal. Losi includes a thin washer that goes between the pin and the O-ring. That's only really needed if you're having problems with your differentials leaking. I actually prefer to not use the shim. It just gives you a little bit freer diff action. So the next step, you'll apply the pin and the gasket, making sure with the gasket that you line it up to the holes in the ring gear, and then do the same thing with the diff housing side. Put the outdrive in, work the grease around, take your O-ring, slide it onto the outdrive, drop your pin down in here. I just use a wrench or you can use needle nose pliers, but you'll just basically work the pin around. Now that we have the pin installed, we'll drop the gear in, work it around to make sure that it's keyed into the pin. The pin is into the slot of the gear. Load the rest of your gears here. And I always just spin just to make sure everything's keyed and the mesh is correct. And then we'll take our 2000 weight diff oil, put this into the diff housing, and I always make sure that I get fluid back in behind the pin and everywhere. You just want to make sure you have no air, just like if you're building shocks. You want that diff pretty much full. I'll drop in the top gear here. And what this does, dropping the top gear in, it just ensures that you have the correct amount of fluid. Like you can see that there's gaps around the outside of the gear, so I'll come back with my fluid and just fill this all in here. Let that settle for a few seconds, and then I'll just actually take my finger and just wipe across the top. Do that twice, just to make sure you don't have too much oil. And then your diff is perfectly full. Doesn't have too much. It's basically perfect. Take your ring gear here, drop it on, make sure that you line up the gear with the pin slot, and that your gasket lines up with the diff housing. And then I'll use my Hitachi drill here. Just make sure that you always start with a low torque setting so that you don't strip this out. And then I don't tighten the screws all the way until I get a couple of them in. Once you go to put the 4 screw in, you can go ahead and crank it down. Snug it a little bit extra. Then make sure you tighten the other 3 screws. Check the diff just to make sure it's got free diff action. And you're ready to go.